All right, today's speaker is somebody who's not spoken here in person for 2 years. That's, of course, because we haven't been meeting much in person here for 2 years. But she's recently had a big event in her life, and I think she's going to tell about it in The Price of Love. Here's Reverend Joyce Zorger.
Thank you. Wow, this service had so much energy for me, and I'm going to talk about what I wrote about for my talk this morning, and it's the price of love. And I thought to myself, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to remember all of this because there's so much that I'm involved with doing since the passing of my husband. Actually, it's been almost a month ago, and we had a wonderful service for him here on the 20th, on his birthday. He would have been 87th. That was his birthday that day. And, and I mentioned that we've been married for nearly 64 years, and I was just a child when he stole me out of my home. But I just went from my mother's home to making a home for John and I, and it was, it just feels kind of strange to be at Feather Ranch. I'm not really alone because I've had a lot of love and company and friends calling and cards, receiving cards, and I just feel so full. And if I start to cry at this, please, that it's just a human experience, and that's the price of love, the deep grief that we feel when it's a long-lasting kind of love. And I know that you understand that, and and if I get off, as I often do when I speak, and I just feel so energized just being here in this room, in this very room, and it's been so long, except when we met here on the 20th of this month for John's celebration of a life well lived, and that's truly what it was. He was just it was just so. I don't know if I think I mentioned in the eulogy that I wrote and that Nancy Johnson did such a beautiful job presenting, that he retired when he was 57. So he had a wonderful life doing the things he loved to do and loving me. And those are the things he loved to do. And I am very grateful for that. Talk about appreciation. I know this month is Appreciation Month, and I just appreciate returning to this very room and being with you because I feel so loved and supported by each one of you. I do. I'm just so grateful. But I'm totally off my talk, but maybe you'd rather hear me just extrapolate. But anyway, I wanted to tell you that there was a woman that called me recently, and she wanted to express her condolence, and she had lost her husband a few years ago. And she said to me something that was what I decided to call my talk today. And she said, grief is not a sign of weakness nor a lack of faith. It is the price of love. And that touched me so deeply. And I thought, this is what I'm going to put my talk on, And so this is what I wrote, and I wanted to share with you. She shared a few other sayings with me, which I'll share toward the end of my talk. But I thought about what she said, the price of love, and I just got chills in my body, and I knew that that's true because the more one loves, the deeper the impact emotionally and mentally and physically. And this is what I've been experiencing. This is true for a long-lasting love, and it's true for anything that we connect with at that level of love, because I do believe that God is love, and that's how God expresses in and through each one of us. God expresses as love, and when we share love with one another, that's the God within us that's connecting with each other, and that's what buoys us up. That's what helps us get through this life that can be challenging at times, as some of you here I know have actually experienced. And I was just happy to see Wayne Edmondson here. I didn't recognize him without his beard, but he still has that charm about him and his beautiful, and how beautifully he always looks, in dresses. And somebody said, did you notice his tie? And I didn't, so I have to make sure I notice your tie after this talk. But the last talk I gave here was on Zoom, and it was December 19th, and it was a very emotional talk for me. It was because I shared about my husband John's the debilitating effect of this Alzheimer's, and how it just robs the person, and I saw him fading away, and I had somebody said to me one time that it is the long goodbye, and that's what I experienced, that long goodbye of all that he was, and but he was able to express love to the very end. And I think somebody, I don't know if I can share this, but one time when I would wake him up in the morning, I said, "Come on, John, it's time to get up and face the world." And he looked at me and he said, "You are my world." And I'll never forget that. And so talk about appreciation and being grateful. Where's Rita? Rita, I mean, I feel so filled with a feeling of my life. I feel that sharing it with John has been one of my greatest experiences, and also my greatest challenge, because he was an engineer and he was also German descent, and so he had a lot of stubbornness, but I grew a lot. I grew a lot from being married to him for all those years. I know that I am who I am today because of that experience. And I know that, Brian, you're going to have this experience as well with your loved one. And I'm excited for you about that. And I met her just recently and got to talk with her. She's just a charming lady. I love her smile, and her smile lights up the room. Anyway, I'm totally off my talk, but anyway, I was talking to you, and I have to say, I'm sitting here, and the song about reaching out and touching joy, my friend Tom and Vicky sitting right behind me, he puts his hand on my shoulder, and I didn't know what he meant by that, but he said, "I'm touching joy." And because my, thank you, Tom, thank you. And my dear friend Rosie, who has been my support, she's a practitioner from the Huntington Beach Church of Religious Science for many years, since early 1980s, and so have I been involved with that church, and she became a practitioner, and so did I, and she loves horses and animals, so she's been a big help to me. I'm glad you're here. She's heading back from Pacific Grove, where her son lives, and just so glad that you're with me and supporting me. And what was that? That was John. I'm always here. I'm always hearing things like this, and I was sitting down at the table by myself, and I haven't been by myself too often lately, but I was sitting down at the table having a cup of coffee and listening to music, and one of the songs was about "I'll always be your man," and that's one of the things that John and I would say to each other. He would say, "You're my woman," and I would say, "You're my man," and so I knew that he was talking to me yesterday, a couple of mornings ago, and said, "Well, thank you, John, it'll always be that way," and so love is forever, and but it takes effort, and it takes commitment, and it's but the divine love is easy to express, because all we have to do is accept it and express it, and that comes naturally if we allow it. And that's not my message. Well, the message is a price of love, because I mentioned how it's the more one loves, the deeper the impact emotionally, mentally, and physically. And I'm holding together because of the love that I'm feeling from so many of you. I just am so, the month of April is Appreciation Month. It's also my birthday month, and I like the song Pieces of April, and I feel like there's so many pieces of April that I'm experiencing now. So I started to tell you about my talk on December 19th, and I shared with you the Christmas letters that we've received living on Feather Ranch for all these years, 24 years. So I had one to read to John every morning of December. And I did. After breakfast, that was our pattern. I'd fix breakfast, we'd have our breakfast together, and then I'd read him a Christmas letter. And he didn't remember, and so I was helping him with the memories. But he, it was like he heard them for the first time. And so many of the letters he wrote, I wrote too. But in his stroke in 2012, he stopped writing those letters, and I continued on. But one of the things that that I loved about those letters is John's, the way he would express his sense of humor. He was so funny all the time, and he took certain events and our adventures on Feather Ranch, and he would expand on them, and it just made it so real. And when I read them back, it was just like I was living them again. And we'd close each letter, and we would say. I love Garrison Keillor. How many of you have heard Garrison Keillor? The News from Lake Wobegon? Yes, I love that guy. And I would always say, oh gosh, this is hard. I said, well, that's the news from Feather Ranch, where the women are strong, the men are good looking, and all the animals are above average. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that, the way we closed every letter. And so anyway, my next thing my next paragraph here is talking about remembering the words to the song, In This Very Room, There's Quite Enough Love. And that's a song I requested from Jan and Nina to sing today after my talk. That and I should keep an eye on the talk, because I get going up here and I feel your energy, and there's so much more I want to say, but I won't bore you. I'll try not to bore you. But there's a little booklet that is called. Before I continue on that day of December 19th, when I spoke on Zoom. Afterwards, wow, this is going to touch me and I might start to cry, but the Unity congregation came to our home and sang Christmas carols right on our lawn, and John sang along with them. And some of you are here and you remember he was enjoying. And how many of you raise your hand if you were here? And I was so touched by that, and so was he, and he was just enjoying that music. So you came to us when we couldn't come to you. So thank you for that again. So that was very special. That was the day, December 19th. It doesn't seem that long ago, and he was seemed to be so cognizant, so aware, and enjoyed. And music is the connection. I mean, you give such a gift with your music, all of you that. In the choir, all of you, that is such a gift, and it's like it touches the memory at some level in the brain, and the words are there; they're not forgotten. Okay, so this is something I'd like to share with you. It's from a little booklet. Unity has the most wonderful little booklets, and I think I have every single one of those booklets. And one of them is called "Words of Comfort: Reclaiming Inner Peace." And I love the daily word reading today about inner peace, and peace is like a river, and that's so beautiful too. But anyway, the words of comfort, reclaiming inner peace. And there were words there that I would like to read this to you, because I'd like to absorb these words of comfort. And I typed them out, and it's, in the midst of darkness, God's love is here, renewing my spirit, bringing me peace and understanding. And when I read this and when I typed it, I'm doing this for myself, and I'm sharing it with you, and I want you to absorb these beautiful words, because whatever you're going through, take this into your heart and soul. And I'll read this again. In the midst of darkness, and there has been, we all experience darkness in our lives, but we have to know that God's love is here, renewing my spirit, bringing me peace and understanding. And in the midst of loneliness, God's love is here, enfolding me in the warmth of divine companionship, assuring me that I am never alone. And that companionship is that God within, that we know is always there. And breathing in and know. And in the midst of unhappiness, God's love is here, comforting my heart, holding me close, drying my tears, filling me with strength and courage to begin again. I love that too. Everything I read, words are important to me. They're my inspiration. Every morning I wake at 5:30, I get up, I do my yoga, come downstairs, I do my spiritual practice for at least an hour before I get into the day and taking my dogs out, feed the horses, the cats, the birds, and all of that. This is so important. If I can find the time, you can too. You need to have a spiritual practice to get you through the darkness in times like this, or times like I'm going through right now, and many of you are. And you'll get through it because you know what to do. And so this is the next reading here. In the midst of confusion, and I have had a lot of confusion. When we're under stress, there's the confusion. I know for me, it was like I'd start to do something and then I'd think something else and I'd do that and I'd never seem to get anything accomplished. And I've always prided myself of always managing through the day and getting a lot completed in the day, but it's been a struggle and getting through. But this has been a good thing for me to do. Doing this talk, putting this together, it has helped me. It has been a guide for me. And I like what I wrote here, so I'll read it. I'll read you some more, because it helps me too. In the midst of confusion, God's love is here, dispelling anxiety, bringing order and right answers, inspiring me with new vision and new determination to meet life with faith and fearlessness. Faith and fearlessness. We'll get through it. In the midst of regret, and this one here touches me because I have had some regrets of things perhaps more patience with John, but I know that it's taught me that somebody said to me about patience, and that just recently they talked to me about patience, and they said sometimes when I lack patience, it's because I am feeling too much fear, and so the lack of patience and it could be triggered by a sense of fear. So that's something that, yes, that's true. When I saw the inability to remember certain things or do certain things, but I really worked on my patience, and this was a kindness that I was able to share in those days that were such a struggle. So I started to read, and I think I read this already, but in the midst, maybe I need to read it again. In the midst of regret for things I may have done or failed to do, God's love is here, pouring out forgiveness, helping me to release unhappy memories, reminding me that I am needed, that I am a blessing to others, that I have much to give right where I am. And so that is a good reminder. I'll have to read this every morning. So while preparing my talk, I look back on some of my notes from a few months ago, because I was going to do the talk in February, because I do every other month, usually the first Sunday. And I was assigned, or I was scheduled to do that talk, but John was needing so much intensive care, I was not able to put my talk together or know, if I would be able to do it or not. But the book that I came across with these words in it, that the book that I read this from, it was called Words of Comfort, Reclaiming Inner Peace. I realized that I was going to use some of the things from that little booklet, and I have stacks of little booklets, so I always seem to find the right booklet, always seem to find the right words to be inspired, and that I'm grateful. Appreciation, right? I'm grateful for that. So I was really meant to include these sentences that I read to you from that book of comfort. So now, in closing, I have a closing affirmation, and that is, I turn now to that divine source which knows no confusion, to my spiritual center which knows no fear. And I like what my friend that called me and offered condolences, she gave me another little sentence about grief. She said, grief is like the ocean. It comes on waves, ebbing and flowing. Sometimes the water is calm, and sometimes it is overwhelming. All we can do is learn to swim. And so, for me, reading these things help me to learn to swim. And then one of the other things she says, just like a sunbeam can't separate itself from the sun, and a wave can't separate itself from the ocean, we can't separate ourselves from one another. We are all part of a vast sea of love, one indivisible divine mind. We are all one. We are all expressions of that divine mind, that love that God is. And so I have just a little bit more to finish with, and it's the conclusion with John. His name is Washington Irving. Maybe you've read some of the things he has written and said. There is a sacredness in tears, and I've learned that. I've allowed the tears to flow. I am so I'm surprised that I was able to stand here and do this talk today, because this is what this. Well, I shouldn't say that until I'm done, right? But there is a sacredness in tears. They are not the mark of weakness, but of power. They speak more eloquently than 10,000 tongues. They are the messengers of overwhelming grief, of deep contrition, and of unspeakable love, the price of love. And there are 3 words that you need to give the griever. These are to find the words. There are 3 needs, not words, but 3 needs of the griever. These are, and I feel, we all have to go through it one time or another. If we're here on this earthly plane, we feel grief for the loss of anything that we love deeply. But to find the words for the loss, this is important to remember, to find the words for the loss, to say the words out loud, and this is what you're allowing me to do, and to know the words have been heard. And I know that you've heard my words. I feel that. I feel your energy, and I feel connected. And my words, these are my words, for as long as, okay. I gotta take some water, just a minute. Okay. For as long as I can, I will look at this world for both of us. As long as I can, I will laugh with the birds. I will sing with the flowers. I will pray with the stars for both of us. Forever and ever, amen. And in here, our unity, James Dillett Freeman, I love what his words of this poem from The Traveler. And I have copies, I made copies for you if you would like a copy of this. It's another little booklet from Unity, but it has the words of The Traveler here. It's so beautiful, and I'd like to share that with you if you'd like a copy. I'll put it in there by the table. But this is what he said. The final words of his poem. Dear Lord, I thank you for the faith that frees, the love that knows it cannot lose its own, the love that looking through the shadows sees that you and he are never alone, and you and he are ever one. And I'll read this again. Dear Lord, I thank you for the faith that frees, the love that knows it cannot lose its own, the love that looking through the shadows sees that you and he are ever one. And yes, and that concludes my message this morning. Thank you for listening to my words. God bless you. Thank you. Zoom. Thank you.